Hi everyone, here's an overview of the assignment that you'll be doing regarding the PERMA Plus Coaching Wheel and the Transformation Ecocycle. By the time you see this video, you'll have already heard this in class, and I'm doing a little bit extra here to further flesh out PERMA Plus, and then again just describing what's happening inside the assignment itself. So we're going to start building your prototype or your draft transformation eco-cycle related to PERMA Plus, and ultimately getting ready for your final plan of action that you'll be presenting as a final piece of your work in the class. So what you'll need are your coaching wheel, and you'll need your transformation eco-cycle written out on a piece of paper. This is totally fine. What I did here was I just used some Sharpies and I wrote them out on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Now, what I want to do before we get into describing the assignment is I just want to go through PERMA Plus again. You can find lots of information on this on the web. We have a particular way of talking about some of these things in class, so I thought I'd just go over it. So PERMA Plus is a model, well, the PERMA part is a model of the positive psychologists. What they basically did was a bunch of research asking the question, what are the things that ultimately lead to high degrees of well-being and then likely then lead to happiness or subjective well-being? You deciding that you have a high degree of well-being. And the ones that have stood the test of the research so far from those folks are the ones that are represented by PERMA. And then we added the plus because when you're starting to apply it to yourself, there are factors that you're going to recognize are important to you individually and custom to you that might not have made it through the statistics and comparing averages amongst populations. But the PERMA part has withstood that, and so become part of what we are trying to say is the objective model of well-being, which ultimately can lead to subjective well-being, or feeling like you have a great degree of happiness regularly and consistently and solidly as a foundation in your life. Okay, so let's walk through these. Positive emotions. Positive emotions are ones that you experience and tend to be anabolic or uplifting. They're the ones that build you up. They are ones that you wouldn't surprise you too much, like joy and excitement, anticipation, gratitude. There's a lot of positive emotions that tend to be very positive for your health and have a lot of different sorts of ways that they positively impact your life. These are opposed to negative or catabolic emotions. Catabolic emotions are ones that tear you down. Anger, frustration, feeling sad or depressed or disgusted, or a variety of other ones. Again, if you can get online and you can look at what these different emotions are. But the researcher Barbara Fredrickson makes the case that the average person needs 3 positive emotions or anabolic emotions to every single negative or catabolic emotion that they experience, because the negative ones are just so powerful. And so to just be able to stay neutral in your well-being, you need to have 3 to 1. Now, some people might need 5, some people might need 1 to 1. It varies depending on the person and their different, happiness set points, but that's a totally different thing that we'll get into. The basic thing we want you to take away here is that becoming emotionally wise, emotionally intelligent, understanding that these emotions exist, being able to recognize them in yourself, being able to manage them, being able to bring the more positive than negative ones into your life are going to positively impact your well-being. The second one is engaged in strengths. Now, normally, this is talked about by the positive psychologists with this concept of flow. And it makes sense because this is something that this guy, Dr. Csikszentmihalyi, almost an impossible name to spell and say. I've had to practice it. He is a very, very well-known psychologist, and he developed this concept of flow, Or it's kind of like that thing that, when you're in a state of something that you're totally engaged with, time passes, you don't even know what happens, sometimes you don't eat, etc. What really we like to emphasize is the idea that you're engaged in your strengths or your potential strengths. And the reason for this is, and this relates to flow, but the reason for this is because the more you're engaged in your strengths or your potential strengths, the less likely it is that you have to behave in ways that you don't prefer. Every time you behave in a way you don't prefer, it costs you energy. That's called coping. Now, humans tend to have relatively stable personalities. They do change over time, but they're more stable than their behaviors. Behaviors are very, very flexible. So people are able to behave in various ways, particularly in ways that they like or don't prefer to act, even though their preferences stay stable. And the idea here is, how might you spend more time, a larger percentage of your time, as much as possible, engaged in your strengths or ways that you prefer, in things that you prefer to be in, versus things that are areas that you prefer not to be in. So that's the idea there. And the more that you're engaged in your strengths, the more well-being that you'll have in your life. The third is relationships as nourish. And the reason that this is bolded is because that's the one that we're going to focus on in this example. But relationships that nourish, relationships come across almost in all well-being studies or models as a critical, fundamental thing that leads to high degrees, or can have, the opposite effect of their relationships that deplete you. But relationships are super important, and these are things that you can do something about. These are something that are critical in entrepreneurship, innovation, creativity, change making. Doing things by yourself is almost impossible if you want to really make impact happen in the world. And so building relationships that nourish are really important. And we're going to do some work related to this as well, building network maps, etc. The next one is meaning. Now, meaning can be something that comes from a variety of different places. Some people get meaning from their spirituality. Some people get meaning from the impact they're having in the world. Some people get in the nature of the work that they're doing. There's a variety of places that you can get meaning. Additionally, meaning can come from these other areas, like meaning can come from relationships. Meaning can come from whatever you're engaged in with your strengths. Meaning can come from achievement. And this is a big place that meaning comes from, is what are you achieving or accomplishing? The last one is achievement. Believe it or not, achieving things has been found to be an important part of the average person's well-being. And this is probably the one that is like the oldest, get things done. That's going to bring you well-being. What ends up happening, though, is that has a point of diminishing returns, and that if your achievement doesn't have meaning associated with it in relationships while you're engaged in your strengths, so that you're experiencing positive emotions, achievement tends to lose its impact in terms of its ability to help bring high degrees of well-being. The plus is all the other stuff that matters to you that research is not supported through statistical analysis. Doesn't mean it's not important. For example, you might find your physical well-being to be super important physical health to be important to your well-being. Being in nature might be something that is super important to you. Okay, so that's the overview of PERMA. And now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to walk you through the assignment. And the first piece is, in this whole thing is, we're going to work with 3 different time frames. Then, or the past, now, which is now, and next is in the future. And so what you're going to do is you're going to work through each of the different PERMA Plus pieces, and you're going to actually assess where these are and put them on the eco-cycle. So the first thing you need to do is decide on a time frame for your transformation work. It could be 2 months, 6 months, a year, it could be a week, whatever. The time that you're looking forward that you would like to make this transformation happen for whatever area it might be. Now, as you do this, that time frame may change for the different pieces of the puzzle. It's all up to you. What we're trying to do here is give you an example of how to do this, and then you can apply it and customize it to yourself. The next thing is that we're going to do the now. So you're going to mark your satisfaction level for R, or relationship, on the coaching wheel scale. And the second thing you do is on the transformation ecocycle, you'll place the letters RB for where your relationships that nourish are in the cycle now. So if you take a look at this, what I did here was I put I gave myself a 4 here as an example, and R for relationship and B on here. And then I went over here and asked myself, where in the transformation ecocycle am I right now? The B stands for now because A stands for the past and C stands for the future. So B is kind of in the middle, which is going to lead us to this next piece, which is right here. Next, you're going to mark RC, or the future, on the coaching wheel. Then you're going to do the ecocycle next. So what that looks like is this. So I had a 4 for an RB. I want to move to a 7, or RC, and that would take me from this part where I'm in, the exploration stage, the building out different prototypes, active exploration, all the way through here, and saying, okay, now this is how I want it to be. I'm going to dial it in. I'm going to launch this new way of being with my relationships. And that's the advancement that I'm hoping to have over the course of the period of time that I've designated. The last thing you put in to just show that you're on a journey is the RA, or the then. And so you're going to put it on the coaching wheel, then you'll put it on the ecocycle. So for here, this is kind of a classic example. I put the RA as a 3, and then I move to a 4, which is now, and then I want to move to a 7. Here, I put it over here. Now you'll notice I made a little mistake with over here. I'm like, oh man, why don't I just use sticky notes? There's lots of ways to do this. Typically when I do something like this, I use sticky notes because I can move this around and I don't have these scribbles. But you can do whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. You can also use the Miro board, and that is super powerful because you can have this all up on that. And so your assignment ultimately is going to do this for all PERMA plus. So we just did it for relationships, but you're going to do it for P and E and R and A and plus. And the start of class 3 in module 7, you're going to pitch this for up to 3 minutes. So you're going to come back after class 2 when you start of class 3, and you're going to be prepared to give a 3-minute presentation or pitch that says, okay, this is where I am with PERMA plus on my coaching wheel, and this is where the then, now, and next land on each of the on the ecocycle itself. Then during class 3, we're going to work on this, and you're going to be doing some peer coaching to say, okay, well, how might you do these movements? You're going to identify some of these different things and get an example of this. We'll probably stick with relationships. Maybe we'll move to some other pieces. And then between classes 3 and 4, you're going to refine this and advance it. And you may or may not be presenting some more of this in class 4. We'll decide that on the way. But in the end, you will ultimately give a final assignment, most likely a video just describing your overall place where everything is and what your plan is to move forward. All right, there's your overview. I hope that helps. And if you have any questions, just get in touch with Meg or myself.